Hey friends, I am going to tell you today about one of the most exciting, rewarding projects I've ever done with my students, and it came from a staff meeting. It came out of nowhere. I didn't see it coming, but the idea came and we just ran with it, and it went a million times better than I ever could have expected. Are you ready? Let's go. In early December, we were sitting in a staff meeting and we were talking about libraries, classroom libraries and school libraries. Our school does not have a certified school librarian. We have a wonderful aide who does all of the checkout, does all of the managing of the books, but we do not have someone who is trained with a Master of Library Science. She is wonderful, but the kids don't have that librarian where they're going down as a special and learning about the library and all of those amazing things that a lot of schools in Michigan just don't have. And one of the things that came up during this conversation was, why are our kids not using the library as much as maybe you would expect them to? So many of our kids go down to my principal's office, Sue Haney. She has an amazing, amazing library, probably between 600 and 800 books in her office library, all of the newest titles. And kids are always asking me to go to the principal's office. So we just kind of said, why aren't they going? And I think it came down to the books, that we don't have the latest and greatest in children's literature, and Miss Haney does. She is getting all of those books as soon as they come in. When the new Diary of a Wimpy Kid or the new Dog Man comes out, they're in her office, multiple copies, the very day or the very next day. And then we learned that our school library budget is not a lot of money. It's not enough money to be able to get all of those titles. The kids just don't have the opportunity to read the books that they want because our library aide doesn't have the funds that she needs to provide them with the books that they want. I was lucky enough to get a grant through the Jackson Community Foundation to develop literacy at my school, to further the things we're doing and to try new things. And I instantly thought, well, I have a lot of books and my library is pretty strong. I could always use more books, and I could use that money to buy books for my classroom library. I could use that money to give books to kids to increase access at home, but just felt like that money needed to be used to build up our school library, a place in our building that serves all 400 plus students. So when my students came down that morning, I asked them if they would be interested in helping me take $1,800 of that $2,000 grant and use it to purchase books for the library. They of course said yes. How often are kids told that they are going to have the opportunity to spend $1,800 on something and that they're going to have complete control over how that money is spent? They put their whole selves in, and the entire time I felt like I was getting nothing but their best. I felt like they were thinking harder than I've ever seen them think. I think they were challenging each other. I think that they were never looking for getting it done. They always were looking to get it right. Early in the process, they decided that they should break into 6 groups, with 6 grades being served from kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. They broke into those 6 groups, equal-ish number of kids in each group. They selected their groups. A lot of them wanted to be in a grade where they had a sibling. Then they quickly figured out how much money each grade would have, which was $300. And then they asked me, well, what books should we buy, Mr. Sharp? We're in charge of the 1st grade books. And I said, well, what books do you think that you should buy? And they said, well, we like these books when we were in 1st grade, but we don't know if the kids in 1st grade now would like those books. So I asked them, well, how would you answer that question? And they thought, well, maybe we could ask them. And I said, maybe you could ask them. What would that look like? And so they decided to create a survey. And then they're like, Mr. Sharp, what should we ask them? I said, I don't know. What do you think you should ask them? Watching them try to problem solve these surveys was fascinating. The kids that were interviewing 5th grade, for them it was pretty easy. They knew a lot about books, they knew a lot of authors, they knew a lot of genres, they knew pretty quickly what to ask. Then the kids in 3rd grade were like, how well can 3rd graders read? And what do 3rd graders know and not know? Do they know authors? Do they know series? What books are they reading? And the people interviewing kindergarten were like, can they read at all? Do they know any authors? How are they going to fill out the survey? We ended up with 6 completely different surveys built by each of the 6 groups. And they also had to figure out how to interview the people, and that was different in all 6 cases as well. The 5th grade group actually passed out their surveys and had the kids fill it out on their own. The 3rd grade group met in small groups. They got class list from the 3rd grade teachers, and they broke the kids up into groups, and each of them met with a group. And I know that the kindergarten group, they decided to call the kids out one by one in the hall and do the actual writing down on the paper for the kids. And then they all came back after doing their surveys. It took a few days because they had to write a letter to the teacher asking when a good time to visit and survey would be. And they all had all this data, some of them like up to 75 surveys. And they just looked at me like, well, what do we do with this now? And I answered, what do you think you do with this now? And from there, they went all kinds of different directions. Some kids opened up a Google Doc, shared it with their group, and just started writing down all of the things they saw. Other group, I think one of the kindergarten groups had interest down, and they just wrote all of the interest, put tally marks next to ones that were selected multiple times. 5th grade group were looking at different series, and they were also noticing that a lot of the books were later on books in a series, like the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th book, so they would have to go to the library and see which ones we had, which ones we needed, if they were in bad shape. One of the things that was really fun is they wanted to get an entire new set of the Elephant and Piggy series. The 1st grade group wanted to get that, and the 2nd grade group wanted to get that, and they were trying to like battle over who should have to pay for the Elephant and Piggy books. And so they asked me, Mr. Sharp, who should have to pay for the Elephant and Piggy? We think 1st grade, we think 2nd. Who do you think should have to pay for those books? And after some major debate, they realized, well, why don't we just split it? And so they did. They split it. Half of the 1st grade paid for Elephant and Piggy, 2nd grade paid for half out of their $300 budget. After that, I created a Google Sheet with 6 different tabs on the bottom, and with one for each group. They then had to go onto Amazon and find the books that they wanted, and they would put the title, they would put the author, and they would search the price. For some of them, they only had more of like a topic, so they would do some keyword searching. They did a lot of that using Amazon's Kids Who Like This Book Might Also Like This Book feature. I asked them to get between $500 and $600 on their list, even though they only had 3, knowing that some books might not be in print, some books might be hard to get, and just it's better to have too many books at first and then make those choices. And watching them having to revise it and let books go, it was really, really fascinating. Once they had their list, once our Google Sheets document was completely done for all 6 groups, we brought in a local independent bookseller. We did not want for these books to be purchased on Amazon because I wanted my students to see the value of supporting their community, to know the importance of an independent bookstore and how they have an impact on the world and the communities that they live in. So we brought in Jim Stewart from Sterling Books and Brew in Albion, Michigan, and he met in the principal's office with every single group, and they ordered the books and they decided what books they needed and extra copies and all of that thing, and they had some great conversations with Mr. Stewart. It was fascinating to just hear how excited they were when they came back. And when the kids walked into school today, a couple of weeks after the project was wrapped up, there were 6 boxes, 6 big boxes sitting on a table with all of the books that they had ordered. A few are still on back order. They even ordered some that don't come out until next month or the month after, but almost all of our books are here. And seeing their faces, it was just the most amazing thing. Each group picked a table in our classroom and they spread out all of the books and checked in to make sure everything had come. And then they walked around and they saw what the other grades ordered. And it was really interesting because they started to make the realization that, oh my goodness, like, I want to read books that were ordered for kindergartners, and I want to read books that were ordered for 2nd graders. Almost all of them found at least one book ordered for each grade that they wanted to read. And then after they looked around and kind of added to their to-read list, we met at the carpet, and I just asked them what they were thinking. And one of the most amazing things that was said was, these books are going to be checked out, Mr. Sharp, long after we're gone. Like when we're in the middle school and maybe even into high school, kids are going to be reading the books that we helped get for the school. And that's just so cool. And I agree that that is so cool. And I'm just so proud of the work that they did. Another thing that happened in that conversation was they were talking about how nice it was to have some say. And they said, well, we know what we want to read, Mr. Sharp. And those kids knew what they wanted and what they were interested in. And we're really glad that they had a say and they were able to pick the books that they wanted, and that might make them read more, Mr. Sharp, and that's going to help them to be more successful in life. And I'm just really glad that they got to pick the books that they wanted to read. That's really cool. And well, I don't think that kids should be in charge of all of the purchasing of books. I feel like trained professionals who go to college and get degrees and we study this, like we know what our kids need. But I can't help but think part of the budget in all classroom and school libraries should have some input from the kids. Because watching my kids do that and watching them talk to those kids and seeing the choices that they made, it was amazing. And these books are going to be read and read and read. And I can't wait to see the impact that it has on Parma students today, tomorrow, and many months and years down the road. We'll end the project next week when my students meet with kids as they come to the library and they share the books that were purchased for them. And the kids all get a chance to see them, and then hopefully we can get them added to this library system as soon as possible so that our kids can begin reading these books that might change their lives. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and happy, happy